not tonight. They're racing at my favorite track. Heard Goodyear was bringing back the spring, set the tire where we had what they've been bragging about. Driving same speeds, nobody is passing much. We're heading to losing viewers in a rush. My only regret is that I got my hopes up. We're getting bored at Bristol, baby. Goodyear's let us down a lot lately. Does it ever drive you crazy? What's been done to Bristol night races? Everything that you remember, helmet throws and middle fingers, but there's none of that this September. What's been done to Bristol night races, but they'll never change the short track car.
Harry, a man with Harry style, Michael Massie, delivering us some One Direction, because all those cars were going in one direction and not passing each other at Bristol this past Saturday. Welcome in to Happy Hour. My name's Trey Lyle, 1/3 of your host, and he technically was here last week, but this is the first time the top, the three amigos who the foundation pillars of Happy Hour are here. Michael Massie, and of course, at Pit Lane LT, Dalton Hopkins joins us. So, as mentioned in the title, Dalton may be back, but clearly Bristol was not. And then joining us, he's been our relief pitcher. He's going to win relief pitcher of the year. We called him into the bullpen. He's delivered, a solid, he delivers as a solid, 3 innings every night. Davey Segal at Davey Center from SiriusXM NASCAR. This is a fun time. And so Dalton, first question is to you. Now you've had a whole week of being back. How does it feel?
It's kind of interesting to be back in society again. Because where I was for the last 10 months, there wasn't really a whole lot of. It was not like home. I can tell you that right now. And of course, now that I'm back, we have a hurricane coming towards my state right now. So go figure. But no, it's great to be back. I got to watch the Bristol night race with my family. First race I've seen with my family for over a year now. So it was really, really nice to see that and to be back into getting back in the groove again. I can't wait to actually go back to a racetrack and go back to seeing interviews and seeing great people like Davey at the racetrack again. I see you in the screen, Davey. I need to see you physically though.
I want to see you physically too, my man. It's good to have you back.
We can't. How did we get him? We can't afford him. He's too good. He's too professional.
I was here. Stop gassing me up, first of all, please, respectfully. And second of all, I was here before you. It was me and Massie back in the day. So
Yes, sir.
I done been here, dog.
Yeah, but you graduated. You
Yeah, but
not an adult job. You went to the adult world.
You never forget where you come from.
Yeah.
he decided to help us peasants. So
yeah,
you said it, not me.
He's like, okay, I guess.
Since you've been gone, he became a seat for Kyle Busch. That's how famous he got.
I listened in on some podcasts while I was away. I heard Davey's wonderful voice among all the other wonderful guests that we had.
Why is that what you wanted to do with your time? I mean,
buddy,
jeez,
buddy, if you were where I was, you need something to pass the time. Believe me.
The sound of our voices fended off the bad guys.
It did.
Notice he didn't say he didn't listen to Brian. Notice he didn't say he didn't listen to Brian Nolan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, when it's too high pitched, I had to take the headphones out of the ears.
Yeah, not really too much. The tones are not dulcet with him.
Man, we do so much crap.
Is that a song? Was that another song?
It could be the Brian Nolan song. That's how he laughs. It's
called Mowing Lawn.
5-lug pit gun.
Mow long.
It's the pit gun.
So yeah, I can't quote
Cross
anything.
rails early, boys.
Eat, sleep, crap on Brian Nolan. That's basically happy hour right there. All right, let's do this. Davey, you're technically our guest now in this, so you get to go first.
Oh, goody.
We had 4 drivers unable to make the playoff or advance, and I think the key one was Martin Truex Jr., who really cost himself at Bristol with a speeding penalty. You wanted to go into more about the disappointing end for a guy in his final season.
Yeah, and him and Ty Gibbs, I would say unforced errors didn't necessarily take them out. That was not the sole factor, but I would say that was probably the deciding factor in those 2 drivers not advancing. Now, I'm sure we'll get into it later. The fact that Truex was a second, third place car, he loses his track position, and he's a 24th place car, and he's stuck there. I understand that that's a big elephant in the room that we will certainly address as well. But it was just pretty wild to me to see somebody who won the regular season championship last year, won all these races, and he hadn't been bad this year, but leading into the playoffs, he had been good. I mean, he hasn't had a top 5 since, I believe, the spring. I forget which racetrack it is, but it's been a long, long time. So,
Davey Stat Corner.
like, what is going on with your hands there? So yeah, it was a bit of a disappointing night for Martin Truex Jr. and his fans and everybody involved. So unfortunately, he will not be able to contend for his second championship in his final full-time season. Let's start off with you, Dalton, since I missed you very much. I want to get your opinion on what you think about this first round exit for Martin Truex Jr., especially kind of on the heels of the week before after Watkins Glen. He basically was like, I'm out of here. I'm done. Like, this is not for me anymore. Some people may have said that he was already a little bit checked out. I don't know if I fully subscribe to that, but what do you think about the former champion and future Hall of Famer not getting out of round 1?
Yeah, when he got that speeding penalty, after he had to, at the end of the race there, that pretty much cost him the shot at getting back into the play or moving on to the round of 12. I remember, of course, watching the race with my family, and my mom looks at me and she goes, he did that on purpose. And I'm like, no, he didn't. There's no way. Like, he did not do that on purpose. Like, he's a professional. He's got sponsors. He's got a crew behind him. And she's like, yeah, but that's not going to matter. In 8 weeks, that won't matter anymore. I'm like, well, okay, but he's not going to do that. And I started thinking about what he said last week, and he's like, yeah, I'm out of here. And I felt like he said that in a moment of frustration. But when you are frustrated and you're emotional, sometimes your inhibitions are kind of released a little bit, and you say things that you actually kind of mean. And I wonder if, and I kind of joked, I sent into the group chat the next morning or that night of the Bristol night race, and I was like, Martin Truex Jr. is going to be in a tree stand by next morning. Like I know the pressure's off now, and it kind of feels like that maybe Martin is, he might have wasn't really taking this too seriously. I do kind of feel like there is some truth to that, but at the same time, you got to look back at the last year that he's had. It's not been that impressive. It's not like he's been winning races. He's not like he's won races this year at all. And he had a decent season last year, but this year has not really been. It's been kind of actually very mirrored Kevin Harvick's last year in Cup Series competition. I kind of feel like there is a lot of similarities there, and I feel like Martin's just kind of he has kind of moved on. I don't think he did anything on purpose. I don't think he sabotaged himself, but I do believe that he probably does not care as much as a lot of other drivers do after being eliminated in the first round. It's unfortunate that it went the way that it did. I do feel like Martin legitimately tried, but I'm sure that when he actually got that speeding penalty and when he finally crossed the line and realized that he was out of the round of 16 or he was out of the playoffs, he probably wasn't frustrated. He probably actually breathed a sigh of relief. I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, it's definitely a double-edged sword. I think I would not say he definitely wanted to maximize his season, meaning winning a championship, but I don't think like the pill is harder to swallow compared to him and let's say Ty Gibbs, who, flamed, like arguably you could argue was more disappointing considering, he'll have more chances at it, but Martin Truex Jr.'s legacy is not changing now that the fact he didn't he got out in the first round. Like, he's still a Hall of Famer. He's still a Cup Series champion. Like, his legacy is not changing. So I think while it's disappointing, I think you bring up a good point of he is probably like there is some sort of pressure relieved off of him. And I would not be shocked if he wins a race, in the back half of the season. But it's still disappointing because this is now back-to-back seasons where the 19 team itself just fell off a cliff at some point in the season. And, you're inserting a very talented Chase Briscoe who shows he can compete in playoffs, in a playoff format, now that he's, won at Darlington and then advanced in this next round. Well, you need to have the team around him that will execute this time of year. And has the 19 team shown that? I don't know. And does that mean James Small comes into, on the chopping block? Or is it just something in which, in one way, that team needed a change, and just by making the driver change, it's a natural infusion of energy that maybe propels them to a better back half of the season next year? Because it's definitely something that's confounding where, you can kind of chalk the Ty Gibbs missing the first round to, all right, this is his first experience doing it. This is Martin Truex Jr. He's a champion. He's been through this format multiple times. Like, he should not be out in the first round, despite the fact he was, I think, the 16 seed. It's more disappointing because he didn't win a race this year. Like, there is an issue with that 19 team, but it could be part of the fact that, drivers, once they get to the end, it kind of just, it falls off. You don't really see, a Jeff Gordon style finish where he makes the championship 4. That's the exception to the rule. So it could be something where Truex is getting out right. He kind of realized, oh, this is, I might not have it anymore fully to my capabilities. And that's why he's bowing out when he did, just a little bit earlier than maybe we thought. Massie?
Yeah. The funny thing is, if you'd said to me before that race, a Joe Gibbs racing car will speed on pit road, and that'll be the reason they miss it, who would we think it was going to be?
11.
We think it'd be the one guy that actually made it through. Well, Christopher Bell did too, but yeah, Denny.
The one that was below the cut line, like the one on the chopping block.
Yeah. So good job, Denny, for running the actual pit road speed and getting through the next round. For Truex, it's interesting because I really feel like, I know this wasn't when he announced his retirement, but I really feel like that spring Richmond race was like the last straw for him, where he had Denny won the race by jumping the restart, and he had that fit where he's slamming into Larson, slamming into Denny. It felt like that was the last time he really got fired up about a race, or it just feels like he was kind of checked out. But if there was one race where I think he would want to win it more than any other, it would be the Bass Pro Shops Bristol night race, where Johnny Morris is there in Victory Lane. So I don't know, and he had a really good run going. But yeah, it was just, I don't know. It's that middle of the season where, he's the last seed. He didn't build up enough points. And that's really what condemned his season, I feel like. Because if he had, 4 wins going into the playoffs, he'd be good with just on the bonus points and stuff. So I don't know. It is weird as well to think that, like, there was a time in his career where if he finished back half of the playoffs, you'd be like, that was a good year for Truex. But now, given that run he had with 78 and the first couple of years in the 19, it's seen as like a disappointment. But really, it's kind of just everything coming full circle for him to finish a year the way the early portions of his career were. And yeah, for Ty Gibbs, Atlanta was his chance. Like, he should have won Atlanta. He let that get away from him. And, he'll have plenty more chances. And as you guys said about Truex, it doesn't take anything away from him. He's still going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's still a champion in the sport. And he's still going to get to do whatever he wants to do for the rest of his life, whether he made the next round or not. And, he'll continue that Bass Pro Shops relationship, I'm sure, and run some Daytona 500 and some Xfinity races, and probably pile on some more wins there.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point at the end, Massie. All right, moving to our next topic. Speaking of that Bristol night race, Dalton, your first race, you got to watch stateside. Very much disappointed a lot of people. I think it was the second worst Rode It On race by Jeff Gluck's poll this season. Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah, I think first I think anything you can take with the Jeff Gluck's race poll, I think you can kind of take that with a grain of salt, because a lot of times that's very much it's heavily skewed by the winner of the race and the fashion of the finish, and there wasn't really any kind of drama at the end there of that race. But at the same time, there is legitimate concern for the rest of the race. There's a legitimate argument to say that the rest of the race was not up to snuff. And I'm a little confused, because I think the night race was probably one of the most anticipated races of the playoffs this year after what we saw in the spring. I'm a little confused because I thought we fixed this. I thought we fixed the short track, or at least the Bristol problem. I thought we knew that, okay, all we got to do is bring this tire in. I know the next gen car is not great at the short tracks, but at least we've got this new tire that shreds very quickly, or wears very quickly, and it makes the racing way more interesting, way more fun. And I guess we just decided not to do that. I know that NASCAR released a statement earlier, or Elton Sawyer released a statement earlier saying that they were just as baffled as everyone else was. And I don't understand how you can be when everyone knows very much what the problem is, and it's the tire. I personally believe that this next gen car, it does need some tweaking. There still needs to be work to be done on this car, especially for the short track package. But the tires felt like kind of like a temporary fix, and we're not using them now. So I don't know what happened there. So I was disappointed, just like everyone else. I can appreciate a good butt whooping, especially one that Kyle Larson put on the field. But the rest of it's not about what happened with Kyle Larson. It's not about what happened up front. It's about what happened everywhere else behind, because Martin Truex Jr., I'm sure, was just as upset the fact that he got that speeding penalty and he knew he was doomed because there was no passing. So let's hear it from you guys. Davey, let's hear it from you.
Well, I think that this can be a multi-layered conversation, issue, topic, what have you. I mean, I think a big reason why the reaction from the fan base and everybody in the industry was overwhelmingly negative was because of the expectation going in. People expected to see what they saw in the spring. And even if they didn't get that, but they got an ounce of that, maybe just a little taste of that, they would have said, all right, yeah, maybe in hindsight, the spring was a little bit overboard. I think it was cool with what we had. A little bit of tire fall off. Things weren't wearing down to the cords in 30, 40, 50, 60 laps. They had a few months to adjust on it. They tested. Everybody knew what to expect going in, and it kind of played out how we thought. That was fine. But it was not that. It was tires barely wearing after quite literally a quarter of the entire 500-lap race. And you had Tyler Reddick stay out to try to win stage 2, and he still got stage points. So I know it was only 2 laps, and that's 30 seconds around Bristol. But on old tires, 100-plus lap tires, you'd expect in a normal scenario the first-place car to drop outside the top 10 for sure in those couple laps, just getting freight trained. And he was able to hold on. So kudos to him, Billy Scott, and the 45 team for making that happen. But I think that this was a classic case of the expectations not matching reality. And I think that's a big part of it. Now, you also can't ignore the fact that for, I think, in a way, the second straight race, or, one of it is the second straight race because Watkins Glen was before it. We had expectations at Watkins Glen as well about the tire wearing out, 3, 4, 5 seconds of fall off at the test. That's what was happening. Then the wheel force test was conducted, and it was more like 2 to 3 seconds of fall off. Then practice happened, and it was like maybe a second of fall off. Then the race happened, and it was like, maybe half a second. So teams are smart. Drivers are smart. People in this sport are smart, and they will adjust on it, and they will, tweak on it a little bit to make sure it gets to where they're satisfied and they're happy. But I don't really think anybody besides Kyle Larson fans were that happy watching the race on Saturday night. I mean, look, it wasn't the best. And we all understand you're not going to have barn burners every single week. I think Chris Gabehart said it pretty well and eloquently after the race. And I think it was Trenton who captured it for you guys at Front Stretch. This is what Bristol is now. This is what happens when everybody's going around the same speed. It is difficult to pass. You have multiple lanes. The top was an option. The bottom was an option with the PJ1. The middle was an option. So you can't say that lane choice wasn't an issue. The issue is that everybody is going the same speed. And I know that that's kind of preaching to the choir here, but Trey, when everybody has similar lap time, how can you expect passing when the variance is so tiny? I think it's a multi-layered problem. And to Dalton's point, the tires is kind of a Band-Aid to a bigger fix that everybody is trying diligently to figure out what the best course of action is to rectify. And if we knew the answer, we wouldn't be sitting here. I'll promise you that. So I know everybody's going to keep trying, and I commend them for it, but just kind of disappointed with what we saw on Saturday and baffled, to Elton's point too.
Yeah, Kyle Larson kind of went on this long, soliloquy on X about, the track and how it's always been tough to pass. And, he's kind of more like, we shouldn't blame Goodyear. And I think Denny Hamlin said a very similar thing. And I'm getting to that point. Like, NASCAR tried to blame Goodyear in the spring. And I sat there and was like, why are we blaming Goodyear? This is good. We need 10% more of a tire. And I think we would have the perfect mix. We said between 80 and 100 laps is maybe between 60 and 80 laps would be the ideal. And you're getting to the point where it's more about doing a fuel run than doing a tire run at Bristol. And that just can't happen. You're running a spec car that's going to run the same speed, and it hurts to see this short track get have the show that it had. Because if we had a typical short track race and Larson still dominated, I think you saw passing in the back, you saw someone trying to move through the field, I think we'd still get, all right, that was a really impressive dominant run by Kyle Larson, but it was still cool to watch the action in the back. Truex basically staying 24th, and that just shouldn't happen when you have a top 5 car. It just shouldn't. And he does bring up a good point. You get stuck in the back at a short track, you might be able to go a lap down, but if they handicap you with a slow car, a car inability to pass due to dirty air, then it just makes it uneventful. By the end of the race, the cut line was uneventful. We knew exactly what was going to happen. Ty Gibbs was fading because he went way too hard, and we knew who was going to make it. You had the car running 3 laps down, going to make it. And it is what it is at this point, but I think changes need to be made. I think it's more on NASCAR's end than Goodyear's end, because Goodyear kind of was like, hey, we can make a tire for this. They did it. They brought, I think, the same tire, and it just didn't produce the same exact outcomes because a lot of different factors have to come into it. That was a weird day in Bristol. It was cloudy compared to a summer day where that track got hot throughout the day. So a lot of different things can happen, but NASCAR proved you can have a good race at Bristol, and this the Xfinity race was good. And you're producing a good product on Friday nights at Bristol. Why can't you produce a good product on Saturday nights at Bristol by just trying something different with the car itself? It seems like NASCAR doesn't want to admit they maybe failed in some aspect with the next gen car, and they're just trying to blame Goodyear. And I think Goodyear at this point is we've tried so much. At some point it has to be the car, and I think at this point it's proven it's the car. Massie?
Yeah, it's definitely the car. It's just not good at short tracks. We've seen it at Bristol, at Martinsville, Richmond. At least Richmond has tire wear. North Wilkesboro recently. The tire is very much a Band-Aid, and it sucks that Goodyear's put in that situation. But I also feel like I'm being lied to when people tell me that was the same tire from the spring. I feel it's one of those like Jedi mind tricks Goodyear's trying to do on us. Like, these are the same tires from before. But there's no way that the temperature being that, like, not even that different, just team setting up for it more. I can't buy you like 100 more laps on the tires.
It's really hard to believe. I'll give you that. And I don't want to like say somebody's lying, but it's hard.
It was
hard
what,
for me
150 laps more essentially by that last run.
It's hard for me to believe that a 20-degree or so temperature difference had that effect, which is why I think everybody's baffled. Like they legitimately don't know why what happened in the spring happened, and they're theorizing that it's temperature. But after seeing the dichotomy of what we saw on Saturday versus what we saw in the spring, I mean, I didn't know before. I sure as hell don't know now. Yeah. And the crew chiefs, engineers, like everybody is at a loss.
Dichotomy. You're breaking out big words, Davey.
Got to pull out my
use
dictionary.
that in a sentence like I just did.
Country origin. I think the what they got to do when they go back there is on the brake pads. We always see Larry Mack with the cheese grater for like Darlington stuff. Just attach an actual cheese grater to the brake pads and just rub against the tires, and we'll create some tire that way. How about we do that? Or just bring some late models out I know I'm not the first person to say that. Bring some late models out for the short track races and not the next gen car. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But I will say,
Cliff Daniels say there was like secondary series that like contributed to the tire wear in the spring. I was like, but they had secondary series every night in Bristol.
Yeah, they had more this time than they did last time.
I think it was actually the opposite. I think it was the lack of track time with other stuff in the spring versus additional track time with general tires from ARCA and trucks and Xfinity.
Was it just Cup in the spring?
I think it was just it was trucks with them, I think.
Oh, that was
it. It was 2 series in the spring and it was 4 in the fall.
Yeah. So that could be a difference. I don't know. They're probably telling the truth and just don't know. Like maybe somebody did screw up that spring set. And
somebody peed in the mixture.
Yeah,
they got to get that guy back.
Yeah, get him to do it again. But I will say, I went to it. It reminded me of the Bristol races of when they first redid the banking to make it like progressive banking, and it was like, what was that? 2012, 2007, something like that. You guys can't tell me you were watching that. But yeah, so from 2011 to 2015, before my front stretch days, back when I was a wee college lad and a few years after that, I went with a group for 5 straight years to the Bristol night race. And we quit going because it got so boring. Because they were just riding the wall and nobody could pass anybody. And that's why I saw this past Saturday night where someone could get a run on the bottom, but they couldn't complete the pass. And it's just infuriating. So I very much like the Bristol days where the bottom was the preferred line and you had to knock someone out of the way to get around them. And I don't know if you could do that with this car either, because you can't get close enough to somebody to actually knock them out of the way. So I don't see what any kind of fix is other than just changing the car. Just have 2 different cars. The current one, take that to all the big tracks, and then give us something different for short tracks and road courses.
We got a whole field of Xfinity race cars. Just bring them out. Just whip them out for the short track races. I mean, I think you kind of segued it into my original point, in that being that I know the next gen car is not perfect. I know, and Bristol has not really been the same since, when Massie was just, 20 years old. But, the thing is, 20 years old, a whole 40 years ago. But, my point being is that these tires, at least what we saw in the spring, they provided a temporary fix to what we saw, or what the problem that we had. And I thought it was going to be a fix for all the short track races. But unfortunately, I again, and it's like you were saying, Massie, I cannot believe that. I cannot believe this is the same tire. I don't think it is. I don't understand what happened. So you cannot sit there and tell me that the temperature, like a 20, 30 degree temperature change, made the tires last 3 times as longer. I don't see how that's possible. And if it is, or if that's what happened, then I don't know. Look, I can't blame Goodyear anymore. You know, there's no really, if that's what they really were expecting, then sure, okay. But we got Martinsville coming up here soon, and that's going to be the penultimate race. We cannot let this happen again. We cannot let Martinsville be another what Bristol night race was.
How long have we've been saying that about Martinsville for like 2 years, I feel like, at this point, which is all the more frustrating because, you know, again, we know what Bristol is capable of putting on. We know what Martinsville is capable of putting on. And when we're at a point where we're almost dreading Bristol and looking forward to Kansas, it's just a weird spot to be in the NASCAR ecosystem. So I'm glad that we're going to Kansas, and I'm glad that this car provides really good intermediate track racing. But I know everybody's going to keep working. They're not going to stop, but it's just disheartening to see all the hard work, unfortunately, not really pan out.
Yeah, I will say the good thing for NASCAR, they're going to arguably their best track at Kansas this weekend. So
definitely.
Inject some life. Speaking of this weekend, the Xfinity Series, for some reason, this is a longer topic. We talk about when they start their playoffs, but they're starting their playoffs this weekend. And Massie, you wanted to preview it.
Yeah, so we had our first ever Xfinity broadcast on the CW this past weekend. Great viewership. We had even more if people could watch on the app, but that's another fight.
Just get some bunny ears, okay? Ladies and gentlemen.
Not everyone can do that, Trey. Some of us have Roku TVs.
Okay. There's this, you can buy it on Amazon.
Man. Or instead of me spending my money, they could make it so you can watch on their app for free.
It is 2024, I will say.
It is 2024.
Actually, you don't even need an antenna. If you find a loose, like a cable, and like just expose the end and put it out in the window, you'll actually get a signal. Sorry,
you want some
we definitely really want to go and do that.
I'm just telling you how it works.
If you connect one copper wire to the other, with your other
the CW is a free channel that you can get.
Might feel a slight jolt.
You go to Walmart and spend $10 on an antenna, you can get the CW.
Free, but you gotta pay money to get it. That's what I'm hearing. Anyways, let's get back on topic. The playoffs are starting this week. 7 races, decide Xfinity champion. Probably gonna get a first timer, could get a Cole Custer repeat. So let's break it down. Who do you guys? Let's go through. I'll give mine last. Davey, we can start with you.
Oh, I was gonna figure out how Dalton was gonna get Chris Buescher to win this title.
He could win the title. But yeah, give me. We're not gonna go through the whole playoffs because that would take too long and we'd lose all our viewers. Which, by the way, Crystal, you're awesome. Thanks for the kind comments. But give me your final 4, and then give me your champion.
So I think Lil Gator is going to get there. I think Justin Allgaier will certainly contend and be there when it counts. I don't know who I'm gonna pick for the champion. I'm gonna talk through it first, and then we'll get there. But I think Allgaier will get there, even though he didn't win the regular season championship. He's proven that he can get points when he needs to. He's got 14 stage wins, which is the most in the series by far. So I think that those playoff points and that good performance will carry him to Phoenix. I think Cole Custer will get there again. I think that he's going to have a very good shot at defending his championship before he kind of graduates for the second time and moves on up into the Cup Series. I feel like an RCR car is going to get there. I'm flip-flopping on which one I think is going to be the one that gets there. I'll go big country and say Austin Hill gets there just because I think that he has shown that he's capable of a little bit more than Jesse Love is at this current moment, just given his experience and all those different things that go along with trying to make a championship 4 run. I don't think SVG is going to get there just because of his lack of experience on ovals. I think Sheldon Creed is going to get there. And I think that, I would not be surprised at all if he pulls a Daniel Hemrick and wins his first career race via the last corner or the last lap and gets off the second place schneid. Say that 10 times fast. So I'll go Creed, Allgaier, Custer, and Hill. You want me to give my title pick now, or you want to go around the horn? What do you guys think?
What do we think?
Can you take me higher and pick your champion?
Sure. Cole Custer goes back to back.
What?
The general.
Stone Cold Custer.
Yeah, brother.
And that's the bottom line. Dalton, how is Chris Buescher going to win the Xfinity Series championship?
All right.
Again.
So if you look at this chart that I prepared, I in all seriousness, I think when it comes down to it, you've got some guys in there that I feel like are below the cut line right now, or below the cut line and really doesn't have a whole lot of points right now that should be considered a little bit more. Davey was very close to what my final four was going to be. I think Justin Allgaier is going to make it. He's too good this year. I do believe that Sheldon Creed is going to make it. I have seen him finish second so many times in the last few weeks. You can
13.
finish second. Yeah, well, okay. But in the last few weeks, he's been really consistent. I think you can second place your way into the final four. I do believe that I'm gonna say Sam Mayer is also gonna make it. I know he hasn't had the best of seasons, but I kind of expect a surprise out of him. I think he's gonna get hot during the playoffs. I think I can see him maybe getting a win and knocking himself into the championship four. He'll be kind of like that little surprise. So, and then my final pick there, I'm gonna go with Chandler Smith. I think Chandler Smith has been pretty strong this year. He had a strong start and then kind of like teetered off a little bit throughout the summer. But I think that's probably because they know that they were safe and they were just trying some new stuff. We've seen that a lot out of teams in the past, especially when it comes to the playoffs. I think Chandler Smith is going to be a little more competitive during the playoffs here. So to kind of sum it up there, I'm going with Allgaier, Chandler Smith, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed. And my championship pick is going to be Justin Allgaier. I think it's just about time he finally gets that Xfinity Series title. I think this is probably the best shot he's got ever, really, since his career began. And I'll even go one further. Sheldon Creed finishes second.
That would be fitting. Caleb Barnes, currently in a Long John Silver is helping us out, said Justin Allgaier is the Denny Hamlin of the Xfinity Series, which is a great point.
We talked to him on Sirius today for Media Day, and we asked him that exact question. And he had a good answer. He was like, I know what Denny's going through. Like, I've lived it. So it's true.
I do think Justin Allgaier will be part of the Final Four. I also think Cole Custer will be there. I really wanted to take SVG because I think he'll win the Roval, and that will give him 4 wins. So it will essentially give him, but he would still be below the cut line. Depending on who makes it. So he would have 15 bonus points or something. He would have, or 20 bonus points with another win. So maybe he builds up enough bonus points to sneak in there, but I just don't think that will happen. So yeah, Allgaier, Custer. I have Creed in there, and I agree with you. I really want to go Riley Herbst because he was so good at Vegas that if he gets to the next round, he could win Vegas. So you know what? I'm going to go Herbst. Herbst wins at Vegas again because you win a race by 15 seconds. It's hard to not pick you again. And then with my arms wide open, I'm going to take it higher. And I'm going to think Sheldon Creed also, like Daniel Hemrick did with Joe Gibbs Racing, finally wins a race and wins the championship.
Let's go there.
With my arms wide open. So that's my pick.
Okay, I'll give you guys the correct one. You guys are all very close to what I was going to do. I'm actually going to change it a little because Davey did say what I was going to say. But so that means you got a good one. But I'll go with Allgaier and Custer. I feel like those are the easy selections there. I will also pick Creed because he's going to second place his way into the championship 4. And then I'm going to go Chandler Smith. as well. Just because he's.
I was going to say, how am I the only one that has picked Chandler Smith to make the Final Four? That just.
Hey.
Well, and so the second to last race is at Martinsville, and he's the short track king of the Xfinity Series right now. So I could see him winning that and then having a good run at Phoenix. And it'll be a Joe Gibbs Racing car that wins the championship, but it won't be Chandler. It'll be, I'm going with you guys on this, but with a small difference. Someone like Eric Almirola will win the race.
And he'll finish second.
Will finish second.
And by the way, Almirola's in the 20 for the entire playoffs, who are the number 1 seed in the Owners' Championship. So that's totally doable.
I was about to ask, does Eric Almirola win the Owners' Championship the 20 car? Because I think they have even more bonus points because they've won, I believe the 20 might have won the most races.
I think they're the number 1 seed. Yeah,
they are. John Hunter and 1 point ahead of Justin Allgaier.
Yeah. So
that's I'm picking the 20 for the Owners' title. Sheldon Creed gets second, wins the driver's
Can't wait
title.
to explain that to all of our wonderful callers and fans.
This guy won the championship, but not really.
Was it not? It was not last year, but the year before when Ross did his move. Larson was in the Owners' points, right? Yeah. And he wasn't in the Final Four.
It was also last year that the 9 car made the Owners' title, but the 23, Bubba Wallace made the drivers, but the 23 car did not make the Owners. So this is somewhat happened before.
But it was 2 years ago when the 4, like the championship 4 on the Owners' side was different than the championship 4 on the driver's side, but it didn't matter because Pagano won both.
Yeah, I remember Larson was eliminated at it might have been the Roval. So it might have been the 8 to then the 4. Yeah, but to your point, I think it's happened before.
Yeah, you see, you just get one guy in one car. You get same situation. Bubba Wallace gets in the 45 car. Then you get Ty Gibbs in the 23, but not actually, because then you get Daniel Hemrick in there for one race, and then you get John Hunter Nemechek in there for a different race.
Daniel Hemrick. We should not talk about the reason Daniel Hemrick had to drive that one race in the 23. I'm just saying.
Well, it did happen. It's on there on Racing Reference. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, speaking of drivers switch doing, it brings us to our last 2 topics. We're going to talk about some trades. Really, to my opinion, this is like the first time in my lifetime I can remember this happening.
I love
News broke, was it Thursday, that Spire Motorsports and Rick Ware Racing were going to do a joint announcement together. And I wish we had, Bob Pockrass could have been like Adam Schefter and been like with the graphic, breaking trade. Rick Ware and Spire essentially have traded drivers starting this week at Kansas. Justin Haley, which was long connected to the 7, and it appears Hendrick Motorsports in that capacity is now going to drive the 7 for 20 now through 2025, and then Corey LaJoie leaving the 7 car, going to Rick Ware in the 51, which he's rumored to be in 2025, but it's not confirmed yet by the company. We'll start with you, Massie, on this one. Overall thoughts of the trade? Do you think this was a good move by both sides? Like, what was your kind of, do you think this should happen more? Like, what did you think about all of this?
Yeah, so obviously we knew that Corey LaJoie was out of the 7 at the end of the year. And Justin Haley, all the rumblings had him, he's allegedly now under contract with Hendrick Motorsports and like loaned out to the 7. Brad Keselowski kind of
basically said it.
Yeah. So that's where that whole Bowman rumor stemmed from. I think it's safe to say now Bowman will be back in the 48. He's had a great playoffs to start with. No reason they should replace him. But yeah, so Haley, Hendrick likes him and is putting him in that 7 car. And it makes sense to me because why wait? If you're going to make the moves, neither guy is racing for the championship. Just pull the trigger now. I don't get why it doesn't happen more often. Like, you missed the playoffs, you're changing drivers. Just do it now. Get a little head start. It used to happen all the time at the end of the season. Like, you'd see, I'm trying to think, like, I remember like Joe Nemechek getting pulled out the 25 car so Brian Vickers could run like the last couple of races.
Junior ran like an end of the race in the 5 car and was going to replace when he was replacing Kyle Busch the next year, but he didn't they didn't do the full swap. It's the only time I can remember like that sort of connection. Like that's probably
Casey
the most notable.
Went to Red Bull, drove the 83 car.
Yeah, he got out of the 9 car like 5 races early. or something like that. Yeah, and then I don't know, like the one trade I can remember like in my lifetime is Jeff Green for Steve Park, the RCR, and that was like after the Coke 600. So I mean, at that point, there's no playoffs or anything, so like you knew neither guy was contend for the championship, so they just made the switch then. But yeah, I think it's a great move. They haven't committed to Corey LaJoie past this year. Rick Ware Racing hasn't. But I feel like he's going to be in that car, but maybe it's just an audition. But still, that's a great way. Put him in there for 7 races. See if you like him. If you don't, you don't have to waste a whole season with a guy that you're not really big on. So I think it's a great move. I hope we see more of it in the future. I understand like sponsorships and stuff like that, or the complication contracts, or that stuff complicates it all. But these two teams made it work, and it was a thing of beauty. And I'm excited to see. It'll be fun to compare those two head to head the rest of the season. I feel like. Oh, Kurt Busch and Regan Smith. That one was a little different because Regan went to replace Dale Jr. for those 2 races. He was out with the concussion. That's when Kurt filled that 78. And they had Allmendinger in the 51 as well for some races, as well as Regan. So not quite apples to apples, but that's a good pool for sure. You guys can go ahead. What do you got to say about this, Dalton? You're muted, right?
You're muted.
We can't hear you. Well, it doesn't say you're muted, but maybe your mic died.
Don't worry, I'll save the day, boys.
Go ahead, Davey.
I love it. I really do. And, I'm a sucker for any time you can like compare stick and ball sports to motorsports, and a trade is as elementary as it gets. And I love it. The reason, as you guys know, that this doesn't happen is because of the contractual obligations with sponsors, manufacturers, all the things of the like, which makes it happening in 2024 so unreal to me. Again, it makes total sense given that Haley's going to be there next year. And, signs point, I would say, to LaJoie being at Rick Ware next year, but we don't know for sure. So it makes sense for all parties involved. But also, usually when a driver is departing an organization or they're parting ways, however you want to slice it, it's not as amicable as Jeff Dickerson at Spire and Corey LaJoie have been, right? I mean, Jeff has been on the record many times saying that how he wrestled with his decision, he lost sleep over it, it kind of ate him up, and he helped find Corey a new home at Rick Ware Racing, specifically for the end of this year. I mean, that doesn't happen a lot, at least to my memory. And this is a big boy sport. This is a lot of professionals racing at the highest level, obviously with a lot on the line. And for that to happen that way, it's not unprecedented, but it's very rare. So I'm a sucker for anytime something off the wall or rare happens. And again, like they called it a trade too. They weren't like a driver swap or we're doing this the rest of the year as a curse, whatever. Like in the press release and the verbiage from Rick Ware Racing and Spire is a driver trade. And they're leaning into it, which I think is really cool. So I don't expect this to happen a lot moving forward. I'd be a huge fan if it did, just because it makes a lot of sense from all parties involved, manufacturers, sponsors, drivers, teams, the like. But I was very, very much a fan of it, and I'd be cool with it happening in the future too.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we got you.
Wonderful. I don't know if it's coming from the mic or if it's from the computer, but either way, as long as you can understand what I'm saying. So yeah, kind of touching about what both Massie and Davey you've already said is that, yeah, this is such a fascinating thing that we do not ever see. And yeah, I know, I think his name was Noah, brought up earlier. Yeah, the Kurt Busch and Regan Smith thing. Again, like Massie said, not quite the same. I think the last time you can truly say that it was a legitimate driver swap in the middle of the season was Steve Park and Jeff Green. And I remember that even though I was just a wee young lad back then.
Unlike Massie, who was like probably, 25?
I'm pretty sure Massie already had a house by then. Yes. But anyway.
It's in elementary school.
Yeah, but
Your
sure you
kids, your illegitimate kids.
he was enrolled in college. But anyway, I don't think back then they called it a driver swap. Correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I was pretty young back then, so I wasn't looking at the press releases. But I think they just kind of treated it as if it was, oh yeah, we're hiring this guy in the middle of the season, and then the other team was like, okay, we're going to hire this guy in the middle of the season, and
Oh no,
His mic's going again.
I'll
go.
chip in real quick.
Go ahead, Massie.
I was just gonna say the reason we don't see it more in 2024 is the best example I think is Roush with Trevor Bayne, where they clearly wanted to get rid of him, but there were certain races where Advocare was signed with Trevor Bayne, and they had to put him in those races, and that's why him and Matt Kenseth split the car the rest of the year. So I think that's a good example of why we don't see it more in 2024. Go ahead, Dalton, if you got sound back yet. No, he does not. Go ahead, Trey.
I was just saying, I think Rick Ware could have got a first-round pick out of this. They should ask for more. I mean, come on, where's the wheeling and dealing? Like, can we?
It's actually a conditional first in 2029.
I know, right? Like, the Jets got a, the Packers got a conditional first for Aaron Rodgers, right? But it didn't turn out to be a first because he, only was 4 plays long. But like, the Eagles got a conditional first for Carson Wentz, and that got to work out. I mean, like, come on, you got to get creative with this. Maybe you traded Jackman as well. Like, you have to trade a Jack because I think y'all agree with me. I think Spire is upgrading in the talent department with Justin Haley over Corey LaJoie. Like, clearly, I think that is the better driver given what they have done in the Cup Series. And, we're joking about, Rick Ware should ask for more, but, Corey does bring sponsorship, which I think will be good for them. And Corey is good at, the super speedways. And I think he's a guy who's done more with less and is back in that scenario with Rick Ware. And I think Spire wants to compete for wins. And I just don't know if Corey, I don't want to say if Corey's not good enough, but like, I think Justin Haley's just better. And, Spire wants to be an elite team. That's why I think they did this move. Cause if, they want to get more from Hendrick Motorsports, you get the guy that Rick Hendrick wants. And clearly Rick Hendrick wanted Justin Haley. So I think that's all in the moves of this. Davey, you wanted to add one more thing?
I think, another interesting part that I thought Robbie Benton, president of Rick Ware, and Dickerson, co-owner of Spire, were talking pretty openly and honestly about is that Robbie Benton apparently told Jeff Dickerson respectfully, like, I think I can get more out of Corey LaJoie than you can.
Ooh,
and Dickerson
spicy.
didn't really deny that, and they were able to work it out. Again, I mean, like, it sounds spicy, but the way that they were explaining it, it seemed totally cordial, it seemed respectful, and it seemed honest. And it wasn't like a, hey, man, like, you're doing a bad job, I can do better. It was like, I know you see his potential, and I know you're baffled as to why it's not coming to fruition in your cars. I think I can get it out of him. So let's work something out here. And, clearly to the point we said earlier, Justin has some irons in the fire and some stuff going on too. So I just found the whole thing interesting that all parties seem to work together toward putting each of their current drivers in long-term, potentially a better position for themselves, not necessarily for their own selves, if that makes sense. I think it was kind of refreshing in a way.
So you're saying that Corey LaJoie could be the next Malik Willis? Is what I'm saying.
Not my words.
Had to get that in there.
It's a fresh start for him, though, which I think he needs.
So he'll be a backup driver? Like,
he'll get 2 wins next year.
being carried by a pit crew? Like, he got carried by a run game and a defense. Let's be real here. All right.
As long as he's not Will Levis.
Who's the Will Levis? Yeah, someone going to hand him a win, like hand him a touchdown, like hand him the win?
Surrender Cobra.
Dalton, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
We can hear you. We did it. You did it.
Wonderful. All it took was for me to just completely unplug my mic and all of my audio equipment. That's great.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I guess we're pretty much done with this topic, but I will add one last thing. Corey LaJoie is being, kind of talked about. He's been talked about over the year about, and there's been memes made about him, and blah blah blah, and why he's been causing all these incidents. I should say. I think it's a little unfair to him, but at the same time, there is a really positive thing that comes out of this trade from these two teams, and it's that if Corey LaJoy's got what 8 more races to or 7 more races to try out for Rick Ware Racing. If they don't like what they see, they don't have to sign him. So it's not like because that's not confirmed. He's not going to be in there. He's not contracted to be in there next year yet, right?
He's still the favorite to land there, but
he's the favorite, but he's not signed. So if they don't like what they see, they can move on. So it's kind of like, I think somebody, I can't remember who it was earlier. I was too busy screwing with my mic, but somebody mentioned earlier, it's kind of like a trial run. Like, can we actually see something out of Corey that we didn't see out of Spire? So
it's a 30-day free trial.
But
if they forget to cancel it, he's automatically signed back for next year.
Also, I think it's really funny that Justin Haley, we had all this hype behind Justin Haley last year. He's going to Rick Ware Racing, and everyone was like, why are you doing that? They're such a, not a good team. They're not a very proven team. Why would you leave Colleague to go there? And then and it was kind of like this, almost like a side wink from like RFK and Justin Haley, like, oh yeah, we know what we're doing. I guess not, because he's not doing that anymore.
I think Rick Hendrick trumps Brad Keselowski. I just want to point that out. I guess.
I
think that's what happened.
Yeah, that's true. But so much for that project. We're not going to see the fruits of that labor.
That's very true. All right. That got us to think. Let's enter, the NBA. One of my favorite things to do is the NBA, the NBA trade machine that's out there. ESPN has one where you can make mock trades and make it work. We are now, welcome to the NASCAR trade machine. We're going to sit back and we're going to make some mock trades in NASCAR, and I don't think there should be any parameters around it. You can, it could be the current situation. It could be, let's say in the off season, you trade, theoretically, like if you want to trade a playoff driver, but you don't want to do it while they're in the playoffs, like trade it for next season. Or you can do it as if it was like the Justin Haley, Corey LaJoy trade and do it right now. Does anybody want to go first?
Yes.
That's Davey Segal. Look at that. I love the enthusiasm.
Homestead for Phoenix.
Ooh, I didn't say a track. That's actually creative. Oh, I didn't think of that. That's a good one. That's a good one.
That's all I got to say. Speaks for itself.
All right. So no driver's trades you could think of?
You can come back to me maybe, but the first thing that came to my mind is that, because that's what I want to see.
Okay, I guess if it's everything, every lead commentator for every broadcast team next year for Lee Diffie. There you go. I actually do have a driver one if you want to hear something a little bit more serious.
Yes, the original point was to do driver ones, but we're just...
I know.
Maybe you should have specified then, Trey.
Yeah.
I said similar to the...
Words sometimes mean things.
Fair.
No, in all seriousness, so we got Chase Briscoe coming into the 19 car this upcoming season. I'm not saying it's going to be mid-season. I don't think it should be right now. Just saying, during the off season, Chase Briscoe gets traded before he even steps foot in the 19 car, and he gets traded for Kyle Busch. I think Kyle has done his time at RCR. It's time for him to return to JGR if we want to see him actually start winning races again. I know it's he's only been, not had one bad year, but if this is the first year that he doesn't win a race in, 20 years now? I think somewhere around there, 19, 20 years. Something clearly has gone wrong. So it's clearly not up to the Kyle Busch, Rowdy Busch standards. Time to put him back in JGR. Chase Briscoe will run better at RCR than he is right now anyway. So that's my pick.
No, he won't.
I think he will.
Hell no, he won't.
It's better than staying at SHR. So the team that's not going to exist next year.
I'll give you that.
All right. Massie, you have one?
Yeah, let's do.
I was gonna say you could. Oh, I was gonna say you could do the Briscoe Truex trade now. Let Truex go for the title one last time with a team, and then give Truex or give Chase, because I don't think they're gonna win the title, but give
But
Chase.
again, like he's staying on as a consultant at JGR, who has a Toyota partnership, and then you go drive a Ford. It's like
this is hypotheticals. Who cares?
Oh, I thought there were rules. Sorry.
No, I said there were no parameters. I just said there had to be drivers involved. I was trying to think of a crew chief one, but I couldn't. I was going to say like Cole Pern for James Small, but I don't think that would work because James Small has to go manage a ski lodge for the next couple.
I would do Steven Doran for James Small just so I could have James Small and SVG talk to each other.
Mate.
Yeah, that's all they say apparently.
This mate. No,
and the F word, James.
They get last every race because they don't make any adjustments. They're just saying mate back and forth. I would suggest something like Kyle Busch for Ross Chastain.
I swear to God that was mine. I swear to God.
Just because, I feel like neither one is really like Ross had a bad year at Trackhouse, and I feel like him going to RCR, bringing Busch with him to, or you could just put Kyle Busch in a Busch car. That would make sense.
That was my main reason.
But Ross Chastain, I feel like he would fit in really well with that RCR culture of fight first, figure out what actually happened later. And Kyle Busch, I feel like a new scenery, him getting with a team that's kind of on the up and up in Trackhouse. He could be like a veteran leader there for when they do have a down year like this year. He could help figure out what's going on with cars. Or I don't think Ross is there as a veteran yet to where you can really trust his feedback as well as you could at Kyle Busch. So that'd be one. I think another would be like, I don't know, like Eric Jones for Justin Haley, something like that. Like get Eric Jones out of, I think Legacy's the worst team in NASCAR right now. And to get him in a team that's trying to do something, trying to build, and then Haley, throw him in that 43. He seems to be able to get the most out of whatever he gets in. He could raise that performance, which I don't know. You kind of be condemning him, but maybe there's a chance they get good at some point.
So this is an off-season one. The 54 and the 45 switch. So Tyler Reddick for Ty Gibbs. Get Tyler Reddick, who's maybe the most talented driver next to Kyle Larson in a top 4 or top 2 team equipment, and let Ty continue to develop his skills on a team that is proven they can win the regular season title, but it's still 23-11. They're still a growing team. I don't think that will happen because it's Joe Gibbs Racing, but yeah. Imagine, I mean, I guess they're the 6th and 7th Gibbs car now, about to be but still, that was one I could think of. I'm trying to think of a big one like Connor's. I got it. Okay. I think this will eventually happen. I think this is the man who's going to replace the 48 eventually. Since he's technically full-time in the Xfinity Series, and I think this guy will do good in the Xfinity Series, screw it. Connor Zillage for Alex Bowman.
Ooh. Okay.
I think he is the best. He is the one with the only driver in my head that I think has more talent than Kyle Larson that will race in NASCAR. And I think you put him at Hendrick Motorsports. Like, I asked Tom on the Fast Lane last week, like, if Zillage ran a cup race next year, could he win it? I don't think I don't necessarily say he would, but I would not be shocked if he is competitive in it. He's that good at road courses.
The guy wins one Xfinity race.
No, he's also he's won all but one ARCA race. He was on the pole for the first cup
so
race
did every other guy in freaking
Ty Dillon.
He should have won the truck race. I mean, he should have won the truck race at Coda. Like, it's not like I'm picking. He's won the 24 hours at Daytona. It's like I'm not picking.
Truck race,
I'm not picking someone who's bad.
No, he's not bad. I just don't think he's going to be.
He's the number one prospect in NASCAR. It's him or Corey Heim. Like I also thought like a Corey Heim for
Well,
like
really trading anybody.
okay. So
You're just
Riley
getting rid of
Herbst.
Alex Bowman.
I got it. Riley Herbst in the new 2311 car for actually who should they put in the car? Corey Heim.
It's a trade, Trey. Where does Alex Bowman go?
I said he's going to drive
On the
JGR next
streets.
year. So he goes to the JGR car 80. He goes to the 88 and JGR or at Junior Motorsports.
Hope you didn't write that in that pen you're holding because none of this is probably ever going to happen. But that's why it's
I'm just
fun
saying.
and hypothetical.
yeah, and we're throwing out some more crazy trades. How about TradCon for Joe Gibbs Racing, and then Corey Heim could get a Cup ride. So TradCon gets the 4 Chargers and Cup. Joe Gibbs Racing becomes a truck team.
I don't know if David
Yeah.
Gilliland can afford that.
Maybe Toyota will actually put one of their prospects in an honest-to-God Toyota team in the Cup Series instead of just getting somebody from a different Cup Series team.
I think Corey Heim will be in 2311 within 2 years. So not next year or the year after.
Should be next year.
Well, they need some monster money. So
Yeah, that's true.
any more?
I don't know. I didn't really
I'm
prepare
done.
for this.
Proud of you. I was trying to think of one with like for fun. Trade the 2 most hated drivers, Joey Logano for Denny Hamlin.
I don't think Denny could toe the Penske company line.
That would be hilarious. Denny in a
I'm pretty sure doesn't like the other 3 JGR drivers already hate Joey Logano. I don't think he'd be welcomed over
he
there.
already-
Yeah, Ty
Fair.
definitely dislikes him.
I mean, honestly, like I didn't really think too hard into that. I just kind of assumed that every driver, aside from the Penske drivers, already dislike Joey Logano.
And at times, the Penske drivers, too.
How about this? Carson Hocevar for Daniel Suarez.
I actually thought about that.
I think Carson's doing just fine as where he is right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, and
Yeah,
given
but you
the
could argue the
you know,
Trackhouse is an upgrade of a ride.
well, we're hearing that Spire Motorsports could potentially be getting additional support from Chevrolet that would put them on a similar tier 2 Trackhouse. And I would say Hocevar as a rookie right now, trajectory wise, is ahead of where Suarez was in his rookie year. Granted, different situations. Suarez may have been rushed a little bit and his situation was different. But if I'm Carson Hocevar, I like where I'm at. I'm the lead driver at Spire. I'm a young driver at Spire. I got a lot of sponsorship and support from manufacturers behind me. So I'd plant my roots if I was him.
Well, let me ask you this, Davey. If you're Carson Hocevar and you get offered to swap with Alex Bowman at Hendrick Motorsports, and suddenly now you're the new prospect at Hendrick Motorsports instead of being the top dog at Spire, does that sound like a better deal to you?
Mm-hmm.
I just came up with that. So,
I mean, if anybody asks you, hey, would you rather be here or Hendrick Motorsports? I think anybody would probably say
Hendrick
Hendrick unless you're
Motorsports.
already at Gibbs or Penske. Probably.
would you rather
So-
be here and paid $1 billion a year? Would you have to go drive at Hendrick Motorsports?
Well, I would probably stay where I'm at. Money can buy happiness and speed.
That's fair. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's fair.
I got one last one for you. Brad Keselowski for Denny Hamlin. They keep their ownership roles, but they just swap rides.
It's got to be a 3-team trade. You got to throw in so like Tyler Reddick goes to Joe Gibbs, then Brad goes to 2311, and then Denny goes to RFK because to make it work, Brad's got to race for RFK.
And then Busher can go to 2311 and Bubba can go to RFK too.
And then LeBron is now he would race for LeBron instead of Michael
I think
Jordan.
it's time to stop the stream.
Yeah, we're going
I
crazy.
think Kayla proposed Kyle Larson for Max Verstappen. That's a pretty good one.
Do it.
So,
I can get behind that one.
We're going to
Red
be
Bull's
doing
losing
this all
everybody
night.
else.
all right, boys, that will do it for this episode of Happy Hour. At Pit Lane LT, at M_Massie 22, at Davey Center, at Trey Lyle VT. If you're listening to the audio version, make sure you subscribe to our podcast feed. Make sure you hit that like button if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/frontstretch. Next up on the podcast feed, is, of course, Bringing the Heat with Brian Nolan. That's coming later in the week. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If it was an episode of Happy Hour.